Pay attention to Samaya Begum, 20 years old, walking home alone after a late shift at work. The CCTV camera captures her moving through the quiet streets, tired but unhurt, heading back to the house on Binny Street that had become her sanctuary, her escape, her hard-won slice of freedom. She has less than 24 hours left to live. Nobody could have expected what was waiting for her. Nobody could have known that within the walls of the home that was supposed to protect her, something devastating was already being set in motion. And by the time the people who loved her realized something was wrong, it would already be too late. This is the story of Samaya Begum, a young woman who had the courage to fight for her own life once before. A young woman who had beaten the odds, broken free from the chains of control and fear, and was finally building something beautiful for herself. A bright future, an education, independence, a life on her own terms. And it was taken from her in the most brutal, most heartless way imaginable. Bradford, England, June 25th, 2022, 3:35 p.m. Somaya sends a message to one of her closest friends. An ordinary, casual message, the kind you send on a Wednesday afternoon without thinking twice about it. Her friend replies at 4:40 p.m., sending a little video of rain falling outside the window. The message doesn't deliver. Her friend figures maybe Samaya's phone battery has died. It happens. No reason to panic yet. But she tries again a little while later, typing out a simple, quiet message. Can you text me when you get this, please? Nothing. No reply, no read receipt, nothing at all. Meanwhile, back at 32 Binny Street, something is very wrong. Samaya's uncle Dawood, the man she lived with alongside her paternal grandmother, arrives home that afternoon to find the front door unlocked. That immediately stops him cold. The front door was never left unlocked. Samaya was careful. She was always careful. And yet here it is, standing open like a warning sign nobody asked for. Dawood steps inside. And there, already in the house, is someone who absolutely should not be there. His brother, 53-year-old Tarooz Khan. Mohammed was not allowed at that address. He was not allowed anywhere near it. A restraining order had been in place since 2016, barring him from having any contact with his own mother or setting foot anywhere near her home at 32 Binny Street. That order existed for good reason. Mohammed had a long and violent criminal record. In June of 2016, he had been convicted of battery against his own daughter. He had used a knife to threaten her, telling her he would chop her up, all because he had found out she had been talking to boys. That was the kind of man Mohammed Khan was. And that was the kind of man who was now standing inside Samaya's home in a property he was legally banned from entering. Dawood asks him what he is doing there. Mohammed has an answer. He says he just came by to bring his mother some fruit. Says he arrived at around 2 in the afternoon. Says the door was locked when he got there, so he called Samaya to let him in. Says that when he left, Samaya was not in the living room and he didn't see her. Just a harmless visit, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. But Samaya is nowhere to be found. And as the evening drags on and the hours begin to pile up, the panic that had been quietly building in the chest of everyone who loves her starts to roar. Dawood calls her, leaves a message. Her aunt calls her too. No response. At 11 minutes past midnight, Dawood tries again. Her aunt tries again. Still nothing. The calls keep coming through the morning and into the afternoon of the following day, one after another, each one going straight to voicemail, each one adding another layer of dread to what is already an unbearable situation. At 1:15 p.m. on June 26th, Dawood takes the step that nobody wanted to reach. He reports Samaya as a missing person to West Yorkshire Police. The police begin trying to reach her themselves. They call her phone multiple times, same result, straight to voicemail. Every single time, they also try to reach Mohammed Khan. He isn't picking up either. The investigation is now underway, and the clock is ticking. Officers out on patrol receive the call at 5:44 p.m. High-risk missing person. They need to begin looking immediately. Their first stop is 1A Cartergate Works, a shipping container on the edge of Bradford that Mohammed Khan has called home since November of 2021. The unit is small and compact, 30 feet long, 9 feet wide, with another unit stacked directly on top of it. It is not a warm or welcoming place. As the officers pull up, Mohammed is outside, hanging his washing out. He glances over at their car and waves as they drive past. Calm, casual, completely unbothered. His Mitsubishi space wagon is parked outside. The officers ask him why he failed to return numerous calls from the police. He says he was just busy. He tells them the same story he gave Dawood. Went to Binny Street to give his mother some fruit. Arrived around 2 in the afternoon, called Samaya to unlock the door. Didn't see her in the living room when he left. He seems relaxed. Remarkably, chillingly relaxed for a man being questioned about his missing niece. But what the officers are starting to uncover in the CCTV footage tells a very different story. Investigators begin retracing Mohammed's movements from the day Samaya was last seen, and what the cameras show is damning. At 1:52 p.m. on June 25th, Mohammed is captured on CCTV arriving on Binny Street. That much matches what he told police. But one of the officers is then tasked with something that changes the entire picture. He is asked to listen to the audio from the CCTV cameras positioned on that same street, and what he hears is not a peaceful family visit. A male voice, loud and aggressive, "Get the F out of my face." Then "I'm coming back." Footsteps, running, someone moving fast. Then the same voice again, "Come back, come here." And then a female voice, barely audible but unmistakable in its fear, "Lock the door." That is the voice of Samaya Begum. Those are among the last words she is known to have spoken. But the officers are not done yet, because Mohammed's car tells its own story too. Surveillance footage tracks his movements later that same day, showing him driving around Bradford before eventually parking on Mill Lane. And here is where the footage becomes truly disturbing. He gets out of the vehicle, he opens it up, and then he removes what appears to be a large and heavy item from the car before dragging it away. Think about that for a moment. A large and heavy item, dragged away from a car parked near an area of wasteland by a man who is supposed to have nothing to do with his missing niece. Something has happened, and whatever it was, Mohammed Khan knows exactly what it is. On the afternoon of June 27th, at 5 p.m., Mohammed Khan is arrested on suspicion of kidnap. The interrogation begins, and Mohammed Khan, sitting across from the officers who are telling him his niece is missing, does something that investigators will later find deeply telling. He says he has a bad memory. He says his relationship with Samaya was generally good. He says he doesn't know where she is, and throughout it all, he is utterly, eerily calm. Later that same evening, while officers continue their interview with Mohammed, other members of the team head to 32 Binny Street and to his shipping container address at Cartergate Works to photograph both properties. And the following day, they find something next to his unit that stops them cold. A smoldering bin. Inside it, still burning, is a partially destroyed mobile phone. That phone is sent away for analysis. The results come back. It belongs to Samaya. He burned her phone. He stood next to a shipping container and put her phone in a bin and set it on fire while police were already looking for her. Mohammed is brought in for another interview on June 28th, beginning at 14 minutes past midnight at Trafalgar House Police Station. He is asked again about Samaya's disappearance. He provides no answers. When the officers ask him directly whether he really wants to help find his niece, his response is ice cold. "I have given my statement, and there is no further comment." He is interviewed again later that same day at 5:07 p.m. He reiterates he does not know where she is. His lawyer advises him to make no further comment. When the officers push him on why he was at Binny Street at all, given the restraining order that explicitly banned him from going there, he says he had a good reason for being there. But he refuses to say what that reason was. No comment to everything else. The magistrate grants police a further 36 hours to question him, but eventually, they are forced to release him under investigation while the search for Samaya continues. Back at Binny Street on July 1st, investigators return to conduct a more thorough sweep of the property. And this time, they find something that turns a missing person case into something far darker. On a red metal table and on the underside of the carpet in the living room, they find bloodstains. The swabs are sent away for analysis. They come back as a match to Samaya. And then investigators
caught on camera trying to cover up his crime. Mohammed Tarooz Khan seen at a shipping container in Bradford where he'd stored the body of his niece Samaya overnight. It's here he'd transfer it to his car before driving to a location where he'd dump her.
He had gone and had a key cut for the house. On camera, a key to a property the restraining order prohibited him from visiting. A key that would give him the ability to come and go as he pleased without waiting for anyone to let him in. He planned this. At 3:49 p.m. that same day, the CCTV records him back at Binny Street. It is around this same time that there is no further activity on Samaya's phone. No calls, No messages, nothing. Her phone goes silent, and it stays silent. Phone data also reveals that at some point, Muhammad had made internet searches for big rubble sacks, not a phrase most people find themselves typing into a search engine, but a very specific search for someone who needs to transport or conceal something large. And then there is the footage from the shipping container. It shows Muhammad reversing his Mitsubishi space wagon toward the container, unlocking it, and using the angle of the door itself to block whatever he is doing from the view of the camera. He is wearing gloves. 11 days after Somaya is reported missing, on July 6, 2022, at 7:15 p.m. in Bradford, England, the search comes to an end. Officers from West Yorkshire Police are combing through an area near Fitzwilliam Street, a stretch of road located next to Wasteland, where people are known to illegally dump rubbish. They have been told to check for any gaps in the wall, anything that gives them a view through to the other side. One officer finds a gap. He peers through, and something immediately catches his eye. A carpet, wrapped tightly around an object, tied together with string. The string is noticeably clean, noticeably new. Surrounding it are boxes of rotten food and piles of rubbish, stacked on top deliberately as if someone had tried very hard to make it blend in with everything else around it. But it doesn't blend in, because it is covered in flies. And as the officers move closer, they are hit with something that law enforcement officers recognize immediately, the kind of thing that once you have encountered it, you never forget. The smell of death. They peel back the carpet. What they find inside is the severely decomposed body of a young woman. The decomposition is so advanced, so catastrophic, that she is completely unrecognizable. The heat of the English summer, combined with the days she has spent wrapped in that carpet and buried under rubbish on that patch of wasteland, has rendered formal identification impossible at a glance. But investigators feel certain, in the way that only experience can make you certain, that this is Samaya Begum. A post-mortem examination is carried out. The results are harrowing. Lodged in Samaya's back is a 4-inch metal spike. Her lung has been punctured as a direct result of it. The pathologist notes that, had the person been able to seek medical attention, this injury would not necessarily have been immediately life-threatening. But if someone failed to seek help, it could be fatal, primarily due to the risk of serious infection. The pathologist states she is satisfied there is evidence of trauma, including a potential assault prior to death, and that nothing in the post-mortem examination suggests natural disease or natural illness was involved. Due to the catastrophic level of decomposition, particularly around Samaya's head and neck, an exact cause of death cannot be definitively determined. But West Yorkshire Police are unequivocal. Samaya Begum was subjected to a vicious and sustained attack. At 9:10 p.m. on July 6th, officers arrive back at Muhammad's address. He is rearrested, this time on suspicion of murder. This is now his 6th time being interviewed by police. It begins at 4:41 p.m. on July 7th. He is told that the previous day, officers found the badly decomposing body of a woman. And although formal identification is still pending, they strongly believe it is Samaya. Muhammad says he has no idea what they are talking about. He is asked directly whether he is responsible for her death. His answer is 2 words: definitely not. He says he was just driving around that day with no destination in mind because he simply enjoyed driving. The officers ask him whether that drive was actually an attempt to find a place to dispose of Samaya's body. He denies it. They ask him why he parked so close to the location where her body would ultimately be found. He says it is a free country and he can park where he wants. He says it bears no relevance that she would later be discovered there. They ask him about her phone, found burning in a bin right next to his unit. Could just be a coincidence, he says. Could just be a coincidence. He tells the officers he is really upset at the thought of a family member being treated this way. He explains that he is not a violent person. He says, with what appears to be complete sincerity, that he believes most people would describe him as a fantastic person. His 7th and final interview is conducted at 1:04 p.m. on July 8th. Officers play him the CCTV footage. He has no comment. They ask him about the footage showing him removing something heavy from his car near the wasteland. He says it was just rubbish. All I know is this is a rubbish tip, so I thought it would be a good place to tip some rubbish. They ask him about the 4-inch metal spike found lodged in Samaya's body. He says he doesn't know what it is. He tells the police they are obsessed with trying to pin the blame on somebody to make it look like they have been doing their jobs. He says he feels he is being forced to take responsibility for something he did not do. But one detail from this period of questioning would later prove to be among the most significant of the entire case. During one of the interview sessions, a detective constable is alone in a room with Muhammad, and Muhammad turns to him and begins asking questions. What is the sentence, he wants to know, for someone in his position? The officer explains that murder could carry a life sentence. Muhammad then asks what the sentence would be for the lesser offense of manslaughter. He asks whether it is true that you only serve half your sentence in prison. These are the questions of a man doing math in his head. These are not the questions of an innocent person. These are the questions of a man who already knows exactly what he has done and is quietly trying to work out what he might be facing because of it. The prosecution would later say precisely that. These are sophisticated questions for someone who is innocent. They are not questions of an innocent man. They are questions asked by someone who knows what he has done. Muhammad Khan is charged with murder and remanded in custody. The trial opens at Bradford Crown Court with Mr. Justice Garnham presiding. Prosecutor Jason Peters addresses the jury with stark clarity. Somaya, he tells them, met a traumatic death following a violent attack at her home. Her body was dumped and left to decompose on wasteland like rubbish, to the point that she was not recognizable. And now, something significant shifts. Because in court, Muhammad's story changes. The wall of no comment begins to crumble. His legal team advances a new position. Muhammad, they now say, had been summoned to Binny Street. Not to commit murder, they argue, but to dispose of a body that was already there when he arrived. He knew nothing about Samaya's death until after she had already been killed. He was not the one who attacked her. He was brought in after the fact to clean up someone else's crime. And who might have committed that crime? Muhammad's legal team points firmly at someone who is notably absent from the courtroom, Samaya's father. Her own father, Yasin, who had threatened her with violence at age 16 for refusing a forced marriage in Pakistan. Who had been so consumed with rage and humiliation after Somaya went to the police and had a protection order taken out against him that one of her aunts would later describe him as incandescent. Who had, on January 8th of 2023, boarded a plane to Pakistan on a one-way ticket after entering into an Islamic divorce with his wife, leaving the country before the trial could begin. Yasin, Muhammad's lawyer argues, is the one who would have had a motive, not Muhammad. The prosecution is not buying it. They lay out their evidence methodically, the CCTV footage placing Muhammad at Binny Street, the audio of the raised voices, the chase, the locked door, the key he had cut that same morning to a property the restraining order banned him from entering, the last recorded communication on Samaya's phone, which goes silent precisely when Muhammad is known to have been at the address, her blood on the carpet in the living room, her phone burning in a bin outside his door, him removing something heavy from his car near the wasteland where she would later be found, the gloves, the rubble sack, searches, all of it. The prosecution says they cannot state precisely when Somaya was killed, but they can say, with certainty, that something significant happened around or shortly after the last communication on her phone. And that event coincides exactly with her uncle's arrival at the house. Muhammad does not take the stand. He does not give evidence at his own trial, and the prosecution addresses this head on. The proper inference to be drawn from that decision, they tell the jury, is that he simply cannot answer because he is guilty. The jury deliberates 9.5 hours across 3 days. And then they come back. The argument that Muhammad Khan merely disposed of Samaya's body without being the one to take her life is rejected entirely. Tarooz Khan is found guilty of murder. He is also found guilty on the charge of perverting the course of justice, to which he had already admitted. He is sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 25 years for the murder of his niece, Samaya Begum. He receives a concurrent sentence of 5 years for perverting the course of justice. Cries ring out from the public gallery as the verdict is announced. When Muhammad is sentenced, Mr. Justice Garnham addresses him directly. He tells him it is not possible to identify a single clear motive for this attack. He says it is pure speculation to determine whether this murder was part of some wider family agreement. But what is not speculation, he tells Muhammad, is that the jury has found him guilty of the heinous crime of murder. The judge turns to the issue of how Samaya's body was treated after her death. He describes Muhammad's disposal of her remains as one of the most serious aggravating factors in the case. You showed absolutely no respect for the dead body of your niece, he tells him. That young woman was wrapped in a carpet, tied up with string, and left to decompose in summer heat on a patch of wasteland surrounded by rubbish. She was left there for 11 days. She was left there until she was unrecognizable. And then the judge delivers the final reckoning. Tarooz Khan will be 78 years old before he can even apply for parole. He will be an old man, the judge tells him. He is going to be an old man before anyone considers the possibility of letting him out. Following the sentencing, a challenge is made arguing that the term handed down is unduly lenient and should be increased. The appeal goes to the Attorney General. The Attorney General disagrees. The sentence, he concludes, is not unduly lenient. It will not go before the Court of Appeal. The original sentence stands. Detective Superintendent Mark Bowes, the senior investigating officer on the case, speaks after the verdict. Her life was cut short by the actions of her uncle, Tarooz Khan, he says, who took her life in a vicious and sustained attack at her home address. The place she should have felt safe. The place she should have felt safe. Those words land like a stone in still water. Outside the court, a family friend named Fatima Patel speaks on behalf of Samaya's loved ones. She says their emotions are still all over the place. They are still grieving. But there is some kind of closure for them. All they want to do now is live on in Samaya's memories and continue in the grieving process. Back on Binny Street, neighbors and local residents leave flowers outside the property. A local counselor speaks of how deeply the community has been affected by what happened. And the uncle Samaya had lived with Dawood, the man who first noticed the unlocked door, who made the missing persons report, who tried again and again to reach her, is so traumatized by what happened to his niece in that house that he cannot bring himself to return to the property at all. Afrika Seem, the CEO and founder of Savor UK, a charity dedicated to ending so-called honor-based abuse and violence, speaks about what the murder of Samaya Begum means for the work that still needs to be done. Samaya was a bright, brave woman, she says, who had the right to live freely without fear. Today, we remember her as the smart, courageous student she was, while renewing our pledge to end honor-based abuse and harmful practices. We must be clear that honor-based abuse and harmful practices are not a part of culture or any religion, but violations of human rights. Culture is something beautiful to be celebrated, and it is not an excuse for abuse. There is disappointment expressed, too, regarding the sentence. Representatives from organizations working to combat this kind of violence note that honor-based motivation can increase risk in ways that should perhaps be reflected more explicitly in sentencing. It is a conversation that is far from over. Samaya Begum was 20 years old. She had already survived more in her short life than most people face in a lifetime. At 16, she had done something extraordinarily brave. She had gone to the police. She had stood up in the face of threats of violence from her own father and said no. She had put herself in the hands of the justice system and trusted it to protect her. A forced marriage protection order was granted. She and her siblings were removed from the family home. She moved in with her grandmother. She enrolled at Leeds Beckett University. She passed her first year with excellent marks. She got a part-time job as a carer for the elderly and disabled, a job she described as having the time of her life. She was building something real. She was building a future. And someone took it from her. Someone who was supposed to be family. Someone who walked into her home carrying a key he had cut that very morning to a property he was legally banned from entering, who argued with her, who chased her through those rooms while she ran and screamed and begged for a door to be locked, and who subjected her to what police described without hesitation as a vicious and sustained attack. The CCTV captured her walking home in the early hours of June 25, 2022. Tired but unhurt, unaware, she had less than a day left to live. She had fought so hard for her freedom. She had done everything right. She had been brave enough to go to the authorities once before and put her trust in the system that was meant to keep her safe. And in the end, the threat came from inside the family she had been trying to escape. It came from behind a door she had been desperately trying to keep locked. The man who murdered Samaya Begum will not be eligible for parole until he is 78 years old. Justice, however incomplete it may feel, has been served. But Samaya Begum deserved to see 78 herself. She deserved to finish her degree. She deserved to keep caring for her patients, the ones she was so ecstatic to work with. She deserved the life she had fought so ferociously to claim. She had just found her freedom, and someone took it from her in the place she was supposed to feel most safe.